My name is Pat Warath. I grew up in Mascot, Tennessee, in a little mining town, and I lived there until I married. The hippie culture to me, was freedom. They wanted to be free to do anything. It was in most of them had refused to go and fight in the Vietnam War. They were rebelling, protesting the war, and they just made their own rules and had fun and done their merry thing. Where the hippies got their ideals on how they act. Looking back, I think it was the music of that era. The music from the rock bands.
When lights close and tired eyes, soon be with you, my love. Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. Help! You know I need someone. Help!
Hippie culture was invented from, I basically think it was really anger because of the Vietnam War. Most of them had burned their draft cards and the women burnt their bras. They wanted to prove something, but I don't know what. And I think it really was from anger because they did do a lot of speeches against the Vietnam War. And they were probably right, looking back on the war, Vietnam. They probably knew what they were talking about, because the biggest majority of them were from a university. It was when I started hearing about the Vietnam War. It was in like 1962 and 3. It was just starting to be on TV, on the news at night. And back when I was that age, they would put awful scenes on the nightly news of what was going on over there. That's when university children, mostly kids, would start protesting, like in Berkeley, California. While we were in Vietnam, it was my understanding Vietnam did not want to be a communist country. So we sent troops over there to try to fight and keep them not to become a communist country. But there was a lot of young men's lives lost in vain because it didn't work. It's still a communist country to this day, or become a communist country. How I felt about the loss of lives in Vietnam. They stayed too long knowing that they wasn't going to help, and lost a lot of young Americans. And I think that everyone were bitter about that war. They were so bitter that when the boys and service people did come home from Vietnam, they just more or less ignored them. Instead of giving them the big parade and all the publicity that they give World War II. And those boys just did what they were told to do. They were fighting, they fought for our country. I think most of them did, but they were fighting in vain. Now the government, they just still don't do that much for the Vietnam vet. It's the ordinary person and the news people that are doing all this for the vets, the Vietnam vets. And the Vietnam vets themselves have to honor themselves because the government would rather forget about the Vietnam War. It brought them no glory.